Just FYI to you folks that are on this, Sam's turning it live on YouTube now. Hi, Christy. Just FYI, we're live now. Just FYI to everybody that's on, we're live now.
Well, welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining us for this board meeting, the Salt Lake City School District Board of Education. It is Tuesday, February 16th, 2020 at 5:01 p.m. Sorry for the delay. I had a couple technical difficulties getting on, but welcome to everybody who's here. Also like to extend a welcome to those who are participating virtually, including our association reps. So thank you to Nicole Palmer, representing SLCSD, James Tobler, representing SLEA, B. Alonzo, representing Child Nutrition, Ben Rowley, representing Transportation, and Che Olson, representing Buildings and Grounds, and Steve Russo, representing SLEOPA, and Cindy Mills, who's the SLEOPA's board representative, and we're always grateful to Cindy for her participation in our board meetings. So we're here tonight. As we start, let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you could join me in standing and repeating the pledge. Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate that. The first item that we have before we begin our scheduled interview with our first superintendent finalist is to discuss our calendar. So we need to take action on adding meetings that weren't on our annual schedule for the purpose of conducting the superintendent search. So I would like to take a motion and have a quick discussion on those calendaring items. So what I'm looking for is a meeting to be added February 17th, February 18th, which no meetings have already been noticed based on board conversation last week. And then a meeting to schedule a closed executive meeting to discuss the impressions that people have submitted after the interviews. And I'm based on feedback from the board, looking to schedule that on February 20th. And then a board meeting to cover the business of the board on February 23rd. So if there's discussion to that, we'll just go around the table. Board members want to comment, please go ahead. Hoeli, do you have something you'd like to contribute?
So, just to review, we have already confirmed the ones for the next 2 days, right? Which are the interviews. Those are confirmed already in the calendar, or do we need
They're
those?
not on our annual schedule, so I'd like
Okay.
us to take action on them.
So those ones require. Okay, so those ones are why for me, of course, good. I think the one that needs more of just my opinion is the one for when we make the vote, right, for the who we're going to choose out of the candidates. To me, Saturday is I would, I think it would be best to have it Saturday before the. I think the goal is to have it before the board meeting so that we can announce it at the board meeting, right?
We'll take formal action at the board meeting. That's where we would vote, is at the board meeting. But a discussion about it would be the recommendation is Saturday, but I'm open to what the will of the board is on that.
Okay. Yeah, for me, Saturday's good.
Okay.
I have Melissa, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
Jenny.
Saturdays are good for me as well. I do have, if you're talking about this Saturday, I do have a previous engagement between the hours of 9 and 10:30. So
Okay.
I could be available anytime after that.
How soon after 10:30 could you be available?
11.
Okay, 11 a.m. Okay. Catherine?
All that's the schedule is fine with me.
Okay, thank you. Nate?
Yeah, all those schedules work fine for me as well.
Okay. Mohammed?
I'm good with this as well.
You're good? Okay. You're on mute, I think, but okay.
Hear me now?
I can hear you, yeah.
Bingo.
Okay. Christy?
So I'm not really clear on exactly what everyone's good on. Are we good on the 9 a.m. or is everyone good on changing the schedule to 11 o'clock?
That's a good question.
Both for me work fine. Obviously, if Jenny can't make it, we'll want to change
Right. I just want to make that clear because that wasn't clear. You know, if everyone's good with Jenny at 11 o'clock, that's what we need to state instead of the 9. So is that what everyone's good with, is the 11 o'clock? Okay.
That's good for me.
Okay. All right. So what I'm hearing is that I have, we have a board meeting scheduled for February 17th at 5 p.m., February 18th at 5 p.m., Saturday, February 20th at 11 a.m., and February 23rd for our board meeting, and that we've moved the business of from tonight to next Tuesday. So that it would open with a study session on late start, as we discussed at our previous board meeting. It was a 5 o'clock start for that board meeting. Okay for everyone? Okay.
Can I-
Hand up.
can I
Oh, go
make
ahead,
a comment?
Christy. Sorry.
So, you know, I'm not sure exactly how to approach this. Because I'm a little uncomfortable talking about, well, okay. So the agenda for the 23rd, I feel like that doing a late start conversation is not the highest priority for us right now. That, we have an open meeting training that we need to do. And we also need to start discussions about our student achievement plan, and what we're going to be doing about that, since it is now, up at the end of this school year. So I would just say, I would ask that the board consider not doing the late start at this meeting, that we really, push that forward, because it's not imperative, but the other things are. And so I would just ask leadership to consider that, before having our meeting set for the 23rd is great for me. But if we can maybe have a conversation about what those agenda items are, that would be really great. So thank you.
I'm really happy to take feedback on that. As you know, I feel very strongly that these agendas are board agendas, and I want to make sure that they reflect what the board wants to talk about. So happy to take feedback about that. I would like now to take a motion about these calendaring items so that we can move forward with the interview.
President Ford, I move that we accept a calendar recommendation from this board to add board meetings for the purposes of interviews on February 17th and 18th, both at 5 p.m., as well as a closed session on Saturday, February 20th at 11 a.m., and additionally a business board meeting for February 23rd, next Tuesday.
Do I have a second? Go ahead, Christy. I see your hand.
I was just seconding.
Okay, thank you. So I have a motion and a second to approve the calendar additional meetings on Wednesday, February 17th at 5, Thursday, February 18th at 5, 11 a.m. on February 20th, and a board business meeting on February 23rd. Any discussion to that motion? Christy?
So I just want to thank everybody, for trying to pull this together. I think it's important that our public knows that this is not a normal process for us, to change or to add to our yearly calendar that is posted a year in advance, to add meetings like this. I hope the public is understanding that, we're in a little bit of unprecedented times. We're trying to hire a superintendent. And so apologize for the late notice, of adding, and the changes to our calendar. I think it's important that they know that that's not a normal process that we would take, that this is out of the ordinary.
Yeah, I think that's good feedback, Christy. And then I would just add a thank you to board members for their commitment to this process. It's perhaps the most important thing we'll do. And it takes a significant amount of time, and I know that. And I honor how busy you are, but I do appreciate the seriousness that you've brought to these conversations, and value what you bring to the table. So thank you. All right, let's go ahead and vote on the motion that's on the table.
Yeah, Huele, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Ahmed, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Okay, thank you, board members. We are here for the purpose of interviewing our first finalist for the superintendent position. And for that purpose, I would like to welcome Dr. Wendy Gonzalez to the table. So if you'll join us, Wendy. Thank you for being here. This meeting is being streamed on YouTube. Board members are participating via Zoom. Dr. Gonzalez is at the district office, so you can see her now. Board members have put together through Ray and Associates, our board consultant, interview questions for the candidate. Dr. Gonzalez will just go around the table and ask you the questions that we have in front of us. There are, looks like 18 questions or so a couple minutes per question. It doesn't look to me like Molly ended up putting Dottie on the questions. So Dottie, when there's if you've got do you have the questions in front of you, Dottie? Would you like to ask some questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I'll send you the questions and I'll ask the first one, but then in other places, just where it says my name, go ahead and you can read the questions. And
So I could be the timekeeper again. I could put the 1 minute mark, so you can kind of know that it should be around 3 minutes based on if we have the 18 questions for an hour.
Very well.
okay. Are we comfortable with the parameters
Yes,
of this
yes.
interview?
Yes, I'm trying, like I see him
Thank
here, but
you.
I see him there, so I got you. Okay.
These are crazy times, and I think we're just kind of doing things in a new way, and I think we're learning a
Yes,
lot.
we are.
And I appreciate your flexibility. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. Dr. Wendy Gonzalez, thank you for being with us. The first question, which I will read to you, is what are your guiding educational principles and beliefs as you lead a diverse district such as the Salt Lake City School District? Could you reference one or two specific examples of those beliefs and guiding principles in action?
All right. My guiding principles is the first and foremost is about students. It has to always be about students. And to me, that never wavers, regardless of what role I've ever played in a division. It's always been about what is best for students. And so when you look at that, I also truly believe that learning should be fun and it should be engaging and it should be relevant for our students. They need to know what they're learning in the classroom and how it's going to apply and prepare them for life after high school. I also feel like that it's about equity and opportunities. It's not just about an achievement gap, it's also about an opportunities gap, and being able to have our students have the opportunity to stand up at the plate and have that swing at bat, that they should all be able to experience the humanities and academics, but also, career and technical ed and skill sets, and to find their way, they need to experience it. And I feel like that with diverse populations, even more so, that as they're navigating just how things are done in a U.S. school system, but it's about building and giving them that voice that they need to have to find their way, to figure out what they want to be when they grow up. And so I feel like that as different school divisions that I've been in and that I've had the opportunity to work with diverse populations, where we focused on what we could do and what were meeting their needs and figuring out how they wanted to celebrate and what they were struggling with and what were their barriers. And so it's about meeting with students often. It's about hearing their voices and getting them to have a seat at the table. It's also about shadowing them and seeing what life looks like for them during the school day as you're walking around the halls with them. And so in different divisions, we've incorporated different things like I shared earlier today with our native Spanish speakers, we developed a native Spanish speaking course for them because it was a need that they had to help build their literacy in their own native language and to open the door of opportunity so that they then could move on to AP classes and to participate in an IB class at that rigorous level. So that's an example of where we built something to help support the need that they had and to build their knowledge, especially when they took AP literature and they were able to read all the great works from their ancestries.
Dr. Gonzalez, it's nice to see you face to face, although I'm looking here at the screen. And so I'm going to go ahead. And so thank you so much for taking time to come over here and, and have everyone in our community learn more about you.
Yes.
So my second question here would be, what have you learned from navigating the pandemic as an education leader? What steps would you take to address any hardship and setbacks to students caused by the pandemic?
Okay. Oh, I think one thing, lessons we've learned from the pandemic is school divisions really can be flexible. That really the way we thought we always had to do school, the way we always had to have a certain amount of seat time, a certain amount of days, that we've realized that we really can be more creative and more flexible in our approach to learning. And that really, as we go forward, we're able to offer different opportunities and modalities to our students for whom this has been very successful. Some of the takeaways and the challenges would be looking at what worked and what didn't work. You really have to debrief and say, you know, for a certain part of our population, this system worked, or virtual learning really worked. Other students really were lagging behind and needed to have more face-to-face. So as you go through this year and you're looking at what worked and what didn't work, then you have to start attending to the learning losses that have occurred, because they have occurred, and we have to be courageous enough to acknowledge that and say that, and say, what can we do differently to support them? What can we do over the summer? What can we do at the end of the year? What do we do to help integrate some of the standards that they missed this year for next year? And along the way, it's about meeting the needs, the social, emotional, and mental health needs of the students during this pandemic, and being intentional about how you're addressing that, even in a virtual setting, and keeping those relationships being built and meeting the physical needs. I was pleasantly delighted when I got to tour some of your community learning centers and seeing all the food pantries at your many different buildings. And that's the good works of attending to the needs, the physical needs of the children, but then also addressing the academic needs of them. And so again, learning from the pandemic, we can do things differently, and we can be creative, and we can think outside the box. Now, as we move forward, what are the things that we keep, and what are the things we need to drop, or what are the things we need to adapt to meet the needs of our students? And when we talk about meeting the needs of the students, it's all students, because for some people, going back to what we consider normal doesn't fit the narrative. That really still only support some of the students. And so we have to think about how is it impacting different subgroups of our students and their families, and to help them be successful.
Hello, Dr. Gonzalez. Question number 3 is, with the history of your past employment in mind, please share your plans for your length of commitment as the Salt Lake City Superintendent.
Okay, very good. Well, I want to commit to Salt Lake as I need quite a few years to get the job done. In order to improve things, you have to have some time to get some things done. And it really comes down to the governing board of the Board of Education and the superintendent and the staff, and we're all understanding where the direction that we want to take Salt Lake City schools. And so as you look at my resume and you see the different places that I've transferred to, it's all about growing professionally and feeling like I was making a difference and making a change, and different opportunities that presented themselves. And I was being tapped by different people to come with them, or to go to different jobs, or to apply for different jobs in order to grow and share my talents with others. And so in this change, it really does come down to also taking self-care and being around family. Where I'm at now, I'm a little bit isolated away from family. And so I know it seems like kind of a quick change around from one superintendency to another. But as with all employees, and one thing that we focus on in Page County right now is taking care of ourselves and having that balance of family life and work life, and having them around you. The one thing the pandemic has taught us is how important it is to have those family members and relationships around us. And so, you know, at the bare minimum, you need like 5 to 7 years in order to do really good change and improvements, but at least 4 years to make that commitment. But I would look at it for a longer term. As you know, I have children in the area and I have grandchildren in the area. So that would definitely be my self-care. Superintendency work is hard work. So you want to have those built-in self-care systems and family support systems nearby to help during some of the more challenging times of a superintendency. So with that, I would say that all my other positions were times of growth and opportunities that presented themselves. And now I look forward to the opportunity that has presented itself here with Salt Lake City.
Cool. So I have question 4. How do you see the chain of command operating in a district of this size?
Okay. Well, I feel like in any size division, you do need to have a chain of command, but at the same time, you also need to have accessibility to the superintendent. So it's a fine thing to balance. I think when you're talking about disseminating information and trying to get information in and out, that definitely the chain of command is the way to do it, to make sure that it's following a certain organizational path to make sure that it disseminates correctly. But I think that there's also time, I always have an open door policy that when a group of staff or personnel feel like that they're not being heard for whatever reason, whether they just feel like it personally that they're not being heard, or whether the information for whatever reason isn't being brought down to them, that's important that they can feel like they can reach out, that they can reach out to me, that they can reach out to the cabinet members, that they can feel like there's someone who's going to hear their concern. Because what I always tell the staff, I can't fix what I don't know about. And so then, you know, when you hear about it, then you're able to fix it. But definitely, I always encourage families and even teachers. At first, I always say that you need to check with your school administrators, that don't jump that, because at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones that are fixing it. I can bring it to their attention and help them. But I also want to encourage staff to have that safety, that psychological safety, that they can express it open themselves to their school administrators, that they're able to share out and share those concerns. And when they can't, then that's when we have to really look as to why. What is it about the way we conduct ourselves, or our mannerisms, or the way that we're deciding who's getting information and who's not? What is creating that barrier that they feel like that they can't go directly to them? And especially with families too, it's like it's good to know about it, but it's also important that they work with their school districts, because that's where the instruction and the core work is happening, is at the individual buildings, and that we are here as central office to be supports. And when they're not getting the service they need, we need to step in and provide that service, and also be available and have means of communication where they can reach out to us and know that they're going to get an answer. So part of that is a communication plan, is how do we decide that when we get concerns from the community and they don't go through the schools, how do we get it back to the schools so that they can help solve it? How do we address it? And how do we get the information back out to the constituents? So definitely it's just having that plan in place and working that model.
Good evening, Dr. Gonzalez, and welcome to Salt Lake. I have question number 5 for you. How would you organize the district regarding curriculum in a way that maximizes student performance and potential? Do you anticipate making any changes in our organizational structure?
Oh, that's a very loaded question. First of all, I don't think that you can make any changes when you first walk in the door. That would be unfair to the good work that's already been in place in the division. I think that at least for the first year, while there might be some small changes, if it's like what I call low-hanging fruit, small changes that you can do to help take off the heartache for some groups of constituents, then we do that. But you also need to take time to look and listen and learn and understand how the different components work and why things are done the way they're doing, and who they're serving. But then also have the conversations on why perhaps we might need to address it differently down the road, and why it might need to be changed down the road. But again, with organizational changes, there might be 1 or 2 needs that we look at immediately that might need to be addressed, but that's just again, you don't do that first coming in the door. It's really about having that conversation. And I would say with my entry plan, I would, if I was so selected, I would start interviewing people. And that's the beauty of the 2-hour delay from Virginia to Utah. I can get done work and still call back here and start meeting with people and getting to understand what the challenges and barriers are, and start the work. And then from like July to October, to have those conversations with the different focus groups and the different schools, and really learning exactly what the barriers are to different programs and the successes. And then, you know, from October to December, to really develop out a strategic plan and look at the consensus of what seems to be the things that people consider a concern or areas of improvement that we can work on. And then that's where you start putting some things into place to help making those improvements, aside from the smaller things that you can be doing along the way. But you don't want to upheaval the work that Salt Lake has been doing and all the good work the staff has been doing without a total understanding. That just wouldn't be fair and respectful of the work that's been done.
Welcome, Dr. Gonzalez. If there were a conflict between different community groups in the district over a particular issue, how would you resolve it? Please cite examples that you have used.
Okay. It has to be about communication. That's the biggest part of this job, is communication. You have to bring the entities together when they don't understand. And so one thing that I did is in Page, I started town hall meetings where constituents could come out and we could have a robust discussion. There were times too where you had to meet with them individually because sometimes they just wanted to be heard without being interrupted. And so you have to afford them that time and that audience to meet with them. And so the example I gave earlier is like meeting with the bus drivers. There was a big misunderstanding and feeling some sort of way about things. And so we met with them personally, and then we were able to clarify the misunderstanding and what was happening there, and to work with them, and to also then realize that they wanted to have more of a voice. And so we're like, okay, what do you need? And they wanted to meet more often and to be heard more often. And we did that. And then we were able to work it out, because sometimes different groups of personnel feel like that you're doing things for other people that you're not doing for them. And again, like I say, knowledge is power, and it's about explaining the parameters and the how comes and the whys behind certain decisions to different group members that might not have understood completely what was going on. And so I know that that has worked well for us, is bringing the groups together, even among some certain staff members, bringing them together and helping them clear up that understanding. But it is all about communication, bringing them together. But you also have to set some ground rules that people are allowed to be heard, and that we have to extend grace one to another, and that we have to be able to be patient and listen as well as speak. And that when we speak, we don't always have to be loud. We can just be heard, and to empower both groups to have a voice. And part of that comes through the moderation of the situation, where you're able to say, and what do you think? And what do you think? And when I have different groups around the table, I will ask them specifically, if there's someone who's been particularly quiet, I'll call on them and say, what are you thinking? And what are you feeling about the situation? So again, it's all about communication.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. I have question number 7. What would you do to increase the percentage of graduates who have demonstrated the social and emotional skills necessary to be successful post-graduation?
Could you repeat that question again, please, Christy?
You bet. What would you do to increase the percentage of graduates who have demonstrated the social and emotional skills necessary to be successful post-graduation?
Okay, so they're successful, and they're successful social and emotionally, and you want it to be successful after. Sometimes what you find with children who exhibit the social emotional skills is sometimes they just need guidance on what path they're going to take. And so in order to increase the graduation rates among those children is to give them exposure, and to give them exposure to different experiences they might normally have, and to try things on for size. That's the beauty of CTE classes, is to try things on for size. And then to also help them be prepared with a plan that when they walk out of high school, they have a job resume, they've been taught communication skills, but they also have job applications that they filled out, and they've also met with recruiters, and they've also met with and filled out a college application, and really just helping them walk that step so that they can go forward and help them figure out that stuff. Because even though they're socially emotional developed, they still might not have an idea, and there's no shame in the game of changing your mind. You might go down one path, and like I started out in nursing school, and then I realized I couldn't do body parts that weren't all together. And so, you just switch and you pivot. And to give our students that confidence to try things on before they graduate, but after they graduate to at least have a plan, because without a plan, if you plan to fail, you fail to plan. And so to make sure they have that plan, but also to continue the mentorships after, and to be able to support them up in that. I know in our schools with some of our struggling students, we had to help build their social and emotional skills to be able to be successful, just to work cooperatively with people, and to communicate, and to be able to express themselves. And once we got to that point, it was about helping them cross the finish line of what they were going to do in their future. And that's where having the mentors in the building really helped us to help our kids see that they had a future, and to have role models. And we also had clubs at one point to help them just know how to conduct themselves and how to do interviews. We did mock interviews too with students to help them how to do a handshake, how to do eye contact, how to conduct themselves, how to answer the questions. So it's all about the preparatory work and helping the students to be able to get to the next level when they leave high school, to be just as successful. And keeping tabs on our children. With today's technology, it's very easy to do so, especially if you're a teacher who, you're not necessarily on social media with them while they are a student, but after a student, then you can follow their journey and encourage them and be that cheerleader for them as they go forward.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. So I have question number 8. Give us 1 or 2 specific ideas of how you would measure your own effectiveness as a superintendent and how the board should evaluate your work.
All right. Really, to evaluate a superintendent, I believe, should be tied to the strategic plan, because the strategic plan should reflect the mission and the vision of the school board and the direction that we want to go. And so all things that we do, if we're about equity and excellence with our children, then our strategic plan needs to really dictate what that looks like, feels like, and sound like when you break it out into the different categories of, curriculum and instruction and community engagement and whatnot, to have that laid out. And it's really about having a cascading system. We all should not be on a different page. We all should be evaluated based upon the success of the division and how we reach those goals. So when you have that strategic plan and you have those goals of what we're trying to achieve as a district, then that resonates down to the next level. At the next level, when they're trying to have their goals and what they're trying to achieve in the roles that they hold at that time. And then that goes down to your school levels, that even though they're going to be innovative and creative independently of how they put it into motion, but that there's still metrics in place for us to be able to measure all the way back up to the top. Are we fulfilling the goals that we set out for ourselves as a school board, as a governing body, and as a school division? Are we meeting them? So as it trickles down and cascades down all the way down to the teachers on what they're focusing on, like if they're taking a specific reading assessment and achievement level that they're focusing on, but that feeds into the principal one, which feeds into the school one, which feeds into the department of the central office, which feeds into the superintendent, which feeds into the strategic plan as a whole. So that's all on the same sheet of music going back and forth. And so I would say those metrics are a part of it, definitely a big piece of it, because at the end of the day, it's about improving the instruction of our students and closing the achievement gaps and improving the graduation rate. And so besides that, it also might be just how is the, look at maybe a couple of surveys too, just to see organizationally, how is it functioning? Because the role of a superintendent is to build a culture and a climate with processes and procedures in place that creates an aligned school division, an aligned system at scale to allow us to improve student achievement, close the gap, and improve in graduation. So again, we all have to be aligned on what we're working towards, and so that each of us are held accountable for our part of the grand scheme of things.
Thank you for that detailed answer.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. I was assigned question 9. As superintendent, how would you delegate authority while you also maintain accountability?
Okay.
Please explain the actions you would take.
Okay. Part of that is accountability and delegating. You have to trust the people that you have around you. So as I was meeting with the cabinet today, it was about, when you have a position in the cabinet, that's a position of trust. And that you surround yourself by good people, but of different mindsets, because you want to have diversity in conversation, right? You don't need a lot of yes people around you. So that you trust the people as they're doing things. And like I told the cabinet today, you still want to be kept in the loop. So while you delegate, because you just have to, especially a division this side, and just as a superintendent, because you're working, you're networking, and you're in the schools, and you're advocating, and you're representing the school division on many different levels. You need to trust the people that are around you to carry on the work, and then you report out. So when you have your cabinet meetings, you want to make sure that you're kept in the loop. And like I always tell folks, I need to know, what is it I need to know, and make sure I don't hear about it through the grapevine or through the newspaper. And just likewise, I would never do that to the school board. My thing is that you always make sure the school board knows first and keep them abreast of the happenings. But it's about building that trust and that level of accountability and correcting it when it doesn't quite work well, and let someone know that, hey, I should have known that ahead of time. Make sure that I know that ahead of time. So my process is I allow them the autonomy to do their work, and because I trust that that's the work that they're doing is doing it correctly. But when I find out they're not, that we address it and have that courageous conversation. I figure out how I need to support them to make sure that it's being supported, that they're being supported. But it's also about the staff getting to know me and my preferences and how I work. I know now, after 3 years in Page, that my assistant superintendents, they totally understand what I go for and what I don't go for. But they always go, let me check with the superintendent. Let me check with the superintendent. So I feel like that we have that little checks and balances. They have a good understanding of how things are to be, but they also make sure that they run it by me not to be micromanaging, but just to make sure that there's a level of understanding, because sometimes I might know a piece of the puzzle that I just haven't had a chance to get to them yet. And so then as we communicate and have those conversations, the other thing is that when you work collaboratively, we're all going to be in the same room together often, and we're going to be able to talk about that. It was just like when I was talking to the classified employees today, you know, it's about, you know, not communicating with the bus transportation. And I'm like, I can't even imagine making decisions without checking with transportation first, because it impacts so much what you do in the buildings, especially for us when we're closing for snow days and whatnot. And so having those conversations and reporting out, and then as part of that, doing the updates to the school board so that we're all held accountable, and then I know what's going on. But it is about trusting your people to do the work that we've been assigned to do.
I have question number 10. How would you ensure your visibility in our district? What would you do specifically?
Okay. Well, one thing is, okay, right now it's a little bit harder with the pandemic, right? Because I'm a big sports enthusiast. I love to show up to all the sporting events and cheer the folks on. If you dig deep enough, there's a viral video out there of me being the little cheerleader running up and down the sideline, helping to get the crowd going for a championship game. But it's also about being visible in the classrooms and the school buildings. And so when I go into school buildings, I always check in with the administrators so that they know I'm in their buildings. It's about going in the classrooms and having just sidebar conversations with the teachers without disrupting the classes when I'm able to, and then interacting with the children. It's also about showing up to events. I'm really good about showing up at stuff. When there's conflicts, I make sure that someone from cabinet is at the activity so that someone from central office is always at something. Because obviously at a division this size, it's going to be multiple activities on different occasions. But to be present at the different activities, I go to government functions. I go to different agency functions. I show up to their board meetings to represent the school division. So again, back to the other question I was given earlier, it's about delegating to your people that you trust to do the work so that you can attend these events and be visible and be seen and be heard, and also be there to listen, because you sure do learn a lot when you're able to just interact with people on a casual basis at a fun function of some sort in the community. And also just participate in the community things. We had a mud race, and I mean, I did it. Like, I was in the mud race. Think of, you know, an obstacle race with a Ninja Warrior obstacles thrown in there. And I was out there with the kids doing it. And then I'm out there, like when the kids are playing kickball or dodgeball, I'll jump out there and do it. I mean, even today I Zoom bombed a class, a Spanish class, and jumped in and started speaking Spanish and saying hello to some of the students there. So yeah, I have no problem just kind of popping in and being a part of things. And I do ask that the schools let me know what's going on. That's when I'm not at something, it's usually because I didn't know about it. So it's about letting me know and getting the word to be there. And then I also tell teachers, let me know when you're doing something phenomenal in your classroom. Let me know about it. I want to be there, and I want to be there to support you. So I really find like that a lot of my time is just being at the different events, both within school and the community, after school, before school, on the weekends, whatever, but to be a part of actually the live and breathe and the organic part of a school division.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. I have question number 11 for you. As superintendent, how would you model best practices in equity and anti-racism work in education? How would you address institutional barriers for students and staff as it relates to equity issues?
Okay. Well, first and foremost, we have to do an equity audit right out of the gate, because even our own assumptions, we might think we're being equitable when really we're not. And so as I was talking to different focus groups today, it's really about peeling back those layers, and it's going to be painful at times. It is, because even the best of us who think we don't have biases, they're there, and we just have to unravel it and see what we're doing that in our behaviors that are impacting that. I always tried to model what I expect from others. You'll never see me raise my voice. I will never be condescending to someone. I will always talk to someone privately and won't throw them under the bus publicly. It'll be a sidebar conversation, and it'll be about helping to grow people who might misstep and say something inappropriate. And to me, that's a teaching time to help grow someone to understand what they said or did and how inappropriate that was. So there are a few non-negotiables I have. You know, we have to be truthful with each other, but we're going to be tactful, and we're going to be kind, and we're going to be respectful of each other's differences. it's like that. Everyone has a voice, but we also have to be respectful to allow people to have that voice and to be heard. And so I really am a stickler for that. I've done that my whole life, and it's about trying to understand and it's about having that, that emotional awareness, that empathy, that emotional intelligence. You have to see things through other people's lens. And even if you haven't experienced it, you have to take a step back and to look and try to understand what they're going through and not be so judgmental. I know at one school I was at, we did the Ruby Pain. We were studying the Ruby Pain because so many of our teachers at the time were just being so judgmental about some of our subgroups and what they were purchasing and what they felt like was prioritizing. And it was a real eye-opening experience when we were trying to help our teachers understand that applying your, if you might say, your white experiences on a subgroup is not the same thing, and that you have to understand it from their lens and where they're coming from and their cultural differences. And it makes it different, but it doesn't make it wrong. And so we need to celebrate the unique differences and embrace it, but learn and grow from each other. So working on that. And so again, just modeling it, you will always find that with me, is always being I'm known as the peacemaker. I want everyone to get along and everyone to play nice in the sandbox, right? And I don't tolerate the throwing of the sand. That we will always be respectful, listen to each other, but also understand where someone is coming from and why they choose to buy what they do first over food, for example, or what the needs are, and not to cast judgment on them. That's not what we're here for. We're here to teach all children, but to do that, we have to peel back the layers. And that includes looking at the finances. Where are we putting our money? Are we really backing what we're saying? Are we putting programs to elite singleton electives? And we're ignoring like the bigger classes, like Algebra 1 that a lot of students fail, or English 9? Where are we putting our monies? At the end of the day, we have to be courageous enough to say, wow, that's right. We're really not as equitable as we thought we were, and our kids aren't having that opportunity. And if we're about that, then we have to have our actions support our words, and we have to go after it and affect change.
Thank you. Hang in there, Dr. Gonzalez. We're almost there. Question 12. What processes do you use to gather feedback on programs or initiatives? And can you give us a recent example of how you gathered feedback, for what purpose, and most importantly, what you did with the results?
Okay.
If you need me to repeat, I will.
Yeah, I think I have it. I don't know. You might have to tell me if I missed something. Okay. So getting feedback on projects and in larger divisions, I'll have to be honest, much like yours, you have more personnel and you're able to really do program evaluations where you do those assessments to see if they work. When I was in Williamsburg, we did do some of that on a little smaller scale, where we were able to do surveys, look at the data to see if that initiative actually bore out the fruit that we thought it was going to. And did it impact student achievement? And so you have to have processes in place where you're able to evaluate different things, and then to be able to sit down and make those adjustments on the fly. And sometimes that adjustment is dropping it. And but when you decide to do something is really where the first step of evaluation comes from. And it's back to those 3 things that I said before that we always have to do. You have to look at it first to see, is it good for kids? And then is it educationally sound, research-based, evidence-based? And then is it fiscally responsible and sustainable? And if you're able to say yes to that, then you make those decisions to implement it. But then after you do that, you then need to go back and you need to debrief, and you need to have a systemic way of looking at it through the data and the analysis and the results. Did it give us the bang for our buck that we thought it was going to give us? And so on a smaller scale at different divisions, we did that. So when we did the rollout in of a reading program in one division, we actually met with our teachers and we disaggregated the data with them, and we looked at it to see, did it give us the results that, one, we were promised the program was going to do, but we also had to look at ourselves and honestly say, did we implement it with fidelity? And ironically enough, the teachers were able to be honest to say, you know what, I didn't do the part that I needed to do to make this work, but I see value in the program, and this is what my kids did. And if I had done my part on it, we would have had better results. And so that's, again, where you have to build that culture and climate where it's safe to say those things, and that it's not going to be a punitive response back, but one of growth and learning. If we frame everything in a learning format, that'll be better. And also getting in my different advisory committees, getting their feedback when we do different initiatives. And again, it's about having the right people at the table to do to be part of the process and give that feedback. So again, in a larger division, you have like a department that does program evaluation, you study the data, you look at the end results, you look at what was promised, and you look at all the metrics and you study it and you say, was that of value to us? And or do we need to stay the course? Because sometimes you need to stay the course and you can't drop it that quickly, but you have to do it willingly, looking at and see at our part, did we implement it correctly and do our part? And did we have enough training for the teachers? That always is the other part. But definitely on the smaller scale, so we've done it either with surveys or with personal meetings, looking at the data, bringing the groups of teachers together in my smaller divisions, that's where we did that.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. So I have question number 13. It says, what steps have you taken to mentor and supervise members of your administrative team? Please provide specific examples of what you have found works best.
Okay. Well, in my team right now that I have, what I find is having those personal relationship and personal conversations. It's about going by the school buildings when you're trying to grow either teachers or you're trying to grow administrators to go to the next level. I know I've been fortunate in my career to have people tap me and encourage me to move on and to explore different opportunities, which I have done. So I feel like I need to return that favor and recognize it in other people. And so I will sit down and I'll have conversations and I'll say, have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about administration? Have you ever thought about applying for the principal? Specifically in the division I'm at now, I had one assistant principal that I thought was ready to move up, and there was going to be an opportunity, and she just didn't feel like it. So I showed up at a soccer field where she was having to be there, and her daughter was also playing, and I felt like this would be the perfect time to have just a one-on-one, just Wendy and this person, not Dr. Gonzalez, just Wendy and this person, to be able to talk about and share with her my insights on how I thought that she had qualities, and to give her some encouragement. And I pointed out, her strengths and things that if she was scared about, she shared with me, and I told her how she could work on it to get it to the next level. And she came back and told me, thank you for that she wouldn't have even thought to apply if I hadn't had taken the time to work with her. And then just bicycling, I would go bicycling in her school parking lot, and she'd be there, and we chatted up, and then talking to her current assistant principal now. But building people and having those conversations of what their strengths are and also what they want to do. I tease them lovingly and I say, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do next? What other things do you want to learn about? What do you like and don't like about your job now? And so it really comes into a coaching and a mentoring role, and letting them know that they can share out with me and that I'll help grow them. And there's one person in particular in the SPED department that she is so good with just dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And I told her, I said, have you ever thought about going into, the accountability section of a school division and working on accountability, because you have such an eye for that? And she never thought about that before. And I said, well, when you're ready to get out of more of the instructional world and want to go to that world, you want to make sure, I said, these are the assets that I see in you, and this is what you're really good at. This is why you helped me so much on this avenue. And again, she hadn't thought that before. And so just offering up those words of wisdoms of what I see them and paths they can go. I've had some people ask me about, do I get a doctorate? Do I do the work, Dr. G? Do I apply for superintendency? And I always encourage people and let them know. And I'm very frank with them as what the responsibility is and how to navigate a doctorate when you have kids at home and how to work through all that. So I always try to kind of pass it forward. It was done for me, and I always tried to grow other people around me and to really grow them within the division so that they can be promoted. And so sometimes you have to go outside the division, but sometimes it's really good when you can promote from within, but you have to help grow them.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Question number 14. What has been the most stressful situation you have had in your current or previous positions? How do you handle personally stressful situations?
Yeah. It's So, and I've done that in 2 divisions. Let's be real about this. Okay. So like I was saying earlier in some other groups, I rolled it out in Charles City before, rolling out technology was really the cool thing to do. And it was just, the paradigm shift and making people feel comfortable with it and having that level of comfort and to use it as a tool, not as a crutch, not as a glorified, overhead projector. Now it's just, on the laptop, but to really take it to the next level and see where that can go. And And then also now with the pandemic, and if anything, that was 10 times worse because times it's other superintendents because they get my world. It's retired superintendents or mentors. In one case, it's my former superintendent that I worked with in Charles City, but also Williamsburg. And I share out or call him up. The other thing is, like I said earlier, it's about self-care, having your family around. I would, go do things on the weekend to just step away from the work, step away because I can tend to be a little bit of a workaholic. And so I've had to learn to dial it back a little bit to make sure I take care of myself as well. And to have that personal board of directors. And so sometimes my parents are on it. Sometimes my assistant soups are on it. Sometimes it's retired people. Sometimes it's my kids, and sometimes they're not invited on my personal board of directors. But it's being able to have those conversations with different people to work things through, because I tend to think out loud. I always tease my cabinet now. I just will say, you guys will always know what I'm thinking because it'll come out and I'll be talking out loud about it. And so that way it helps me to think it through and to verbalize it. So when I'm feeling overwhelmed or a little downtrodden or a little bruised, because you can never make everybody happy in this position, right? I reach out to my personal board of directors, I call it, and to get that fulfillment and sometimes that validation of, you got this, Wendy, you hang in there and it'll all be well. So, and I will look for that here as well, even though my family will still be on the board of directors at times. Yes.
Okay. I have question number 15. I think about one or two of the most difficult initiatives that you have implemented in your current position. How did you build consensus around those initiatives? Give us specific examples. Please let me know if you want me to repeat that question.
Okay. All right. Just give me a second here to think about which one I want to share. Okay. Well, there's a couple of things. One initiative I kind of inherited, so I had to carry it to the finish line when I came to Page County, and that was the random student drug testing. People were feeling all sorts of ways on that one, and we have a really strong alliance with a group called PACA that works with us about helping keep our kids out of drugs and alcohol and tobacco use. And so we felt like that one of the ways to do that was to be able to randomly test our student drivers and our athletes. And there's a lot of discontent as far as, why are you targeting them? Why not everybody else? And what about the teachers? I know some teachers you need to be checking. And so it really just kind of split the community on which side of the house it was. But a lot of our staff felt like that was a message that needed to be sent, and that playing sports was a privilege and driving to school was a privilege. And so therefore, that's why we were not doing it for the whole school division, for all the other students. And part of that was also, we were trying to teach them good health, and to be a good athlete, a student athlete, you need to take care of your body. And so the community was really gung-ho about that. And then you had a few parents who weren't. And so it really came down to, they wanted to understand the processes. So we involved a lot of coaches, athletic directors, principals, some teachers, and some parents on the committee that I inherited, and on trying to really devise the policy for the school board. The school board wanted a policy that addressed that, so we were working on that to bring it to the school board. And it went through multiple revisions. And when we shared it with our parents, they actually picked out something that we had totally overlooked, and they really were accusing us of, why did you do it like that? That's discrimination and blah, blah, blah. And it was really just an oversight that we hadn't noticed. So we were grateful for that, and we were able to fix that. But one of the things that really helped was getting the company that was helping us to do that to come on board, to understand the process and how it would truly be random, and how identities would be protected unless something popped, and how we would handle it, and what the consequence would be, and how it was more about growing our people and to bring them back in, that we didn't want them to be out. And it was turning the problem into a learning situation. So one of the remedies or the consequences for those choices that our students made would be to learn about the adverse effects that those chemicals had on them as an athlete and how it impacted their decision making, and as academic student, how to process at the age that they're at. So once we did all that, we noticed that we really had a better following and a level of understanding once our families understood how the process was going to be and how their children weren't going to be targeted. There were some other ones when we did away with the valedictorian and the salutatorian, and we were trying to level the playing field. You talk about equity. We had some families that could buy their way into dual enrollment, which is concurrent enrollment that you all have sessions. And so in order to level the playing field, that's kind of a push now in Virginia, is we took that away so we could celebrate all children who had really good GPAs and not just the one or the two who had the advantage of the access to the money to be able to take more classes during the summer and throughout the year. And again, we were able to bring them along by, again, it's about clarifying and explaining, and then letting them know when it's going to go into effect so that you had plenty of time to build up to that point so everyone knew what the expectation was, and letting them know how you were going to still celebrate the academic successes of the children.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Gonzalez. Question number 16. How can a superintendent maintain strong support services for the district while facing budget constraints?
Well, relationships can buy you, without using money, a lot of services, in the sense of being able to work together and build those partnerships. And sometimes it's about kind of trading off on how we can work together and sharing either facilities or commodities, kind of making it like a win-win. I know today we were talking with Larry earlier today about how the, dentistry services are provided for your students, with the help of dental students, and doing things like that and thinking creatively. But it's also about, sometimes with a budget, you have to look and see where you can make cuts. I mean, that's the reality of the world we live in, and maybe streamlining some of the services and the different resources that we need, and making sure, again, when you look at your audits and you're pulling back the layers, are you getting the bang for your buck that you thought you were? Because usually at the end of the day that you're not. But again, building those relationships, and then doing things where, there are people who want to donate and give services and things like that. But I think sometimes in a school division, you just don't want to be a grant collector or a donor collector. You want to make sure that it's fitting the mission and the strategic plans and the goals that we have in place, and to make sure that we're putting our attention and our money and our services to the things that we prioritize and the things that we collectively all decided was what we were going to work on as a school division, and move forward in that way.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is kind of like the main last question in terms of interview questions. Why should we hire you to be our next superintendent?
All right. Okay, this is a hard question for me, only because I don't like to brag or talk about myself like that way. You'll find that when you meet with people who know me, I am always about a team effort. It's about a team. Everything that I've ever done, all the successes I've ever had in raising student achievement and closing achievement gap, was done with great people on a team. And so one thing, just to sidebar just a little bit, is that I was growing my staff in Page, and I had some of my staff always talking in terms of I, and I was like, no, sir, there is no I in team. We are a team. We collectively decided, we collectively worked on it. We're giving credit to everyone. It's a team effort. And we wanted the community to know that. And that's how I operate. I don't want the glory, and I don't want the attention that way. I want the team to get the credit, and I want the community to know that we're working as a team, that the left hand knows what the right hand's doing, that we're all on the same page, because we are all working off the same strategic plan as it cascades down to our little frame of our world in our division. And but as far as why you should hire me, now that I've got to talk about myself, so I can't do that when you ask me to, so I will really focus on it, is I feel like that I've lived diversity. I have a diverse family. I've lived abroad. I've studied abroad. I've experienced racism against my own family and some inequities. I've also really, in my professional career, I've championed for the underdog. I absolutely loved working at the Alternative Learning Center. And it was the alternative high school. I love championing. I love finding answers. I love solving those problems. And you guys have so many good things in place, and just the level of diversity. with the beauty of the diversity that it brings, it also brings challenges, because you got to make sure that you communicate with your families and that they're understanding it, even in their native tongue or not, depending on their literacy level. But I welcome that, because I feel like everyone should have a swing at bat. That's one reason why I never switched schools when I was in Chesterfield. And I stayed at the one school for as long as I did, because I wanted to be a voice and give them a champion to fight for them. I was invited to go to different sides of the division, which were a little bit less challenging. We always teased about how we should get combat pay in the school that I was in, but I wouldn't have it any other way, because I didn't want to be like, I wanted to make a difference in kids' lives. I didn't want to be, I can do this without you kind of teacher. I didn't want to be in that environment. And so while I've taught AP and IB children, and I love the rigor and the relevance that comes with that, and the expression and helping them come up with their theory of knowledge and their projects, I also relish the kids who are just figuring out life and trying to figure out that they're going to be somebody and just figuring out how to get along with one another. I relish in that. And I feel like that my career has prepared me for that, because I've experienced it personally and professionally. I've championed for it. I mean, there were many times that the school that one of my children went at, not to say which child, but he was a little stinker, and occasionally, let's just say we were on a first name basis with the administration there at that school, and so, and sometimes I got so frustrated. I was like, wow, I bend over backwards for other people's children at this school, and I feel like it wasn't being extended to my child. And so having lived that and having those personal experiences, I really feel like give me that level of empathy and emotional intellect to be able to understand other people. I have a gift to be the peacemaker, and I have a gift of being a really good listener and a problem solver. I definitely am a problem solver, to think outside the box. I have attention to detail. So much so that I'm able to go, well, that's not right, or this needs to be this way, and to really look at efficiencies, to peel back the layers and say, what other ways can we look at this problem to solve it? But I'm also a visionary. I can look at it and go, like, I had students today propose an idea about having a mental health excused absence for them. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's very original. Never thought of that one. But I'm always open to the original ideas that people have and trying to empower them to be able to make it come to fruition. I'm also a data informed leader. My research is about data. I grow people in data literacy and help them to data mine all the way down to where we can effectively make the difference. Like I said earlier to you guys at another interview, I looked at your data, and I saw where, you're doing well when you're in the aggregate, but when you look at the disaggregate, there's, still the 30 to 40% difference between the subgroups. And I know how to look at that data and be able to get us down to that level, and looking at like the verb tense, and is it the level of rigor on Bloom's? Are they not getting to that cognitive state they need to be? Like, they can define it, but they don't know how to apply it. Or is it about the content? Is it about pacing then? Is it about a standard they didn't get to because it's a standard that's at the end of the year and they're just rushing through and they don't get to it? Is it about hobby teaching? Or is it about that they understand, or is it a vocabulary issue? And for, when you have your English language learners, it really becomes about the vocabulary. And so I've worked in, with my students and in school divisions where we've had to really address the vocabulary building and the academic language, which takes so many more years to learn the academic language to be successful, and to build and devise programs to help them do that. And I feel like I've been a part of a lot of initiatives to help with equity, and also to close the achievement gap, to make sure that all students can learn and build the love of learning. I have to share this one anecdote with you. When I was
Dr. Gonzalez,
still
your time is up on that question. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Very good. I'm sorry, I missed your finger on that one.
I was trying to wave. I was like,
Okay.
Thank you to Board Member Organisa for being our timekeeper.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you for your time with us, Dr. Gonzalez. We have appreciated getting to know you. We've kept you busy all day, and you have a couple of hours left in your day.
Yes.
The last thing we would like to do is just give you an opportunity to ask us questions. Are there things that you need to know from the board?
Mm-hmm. I would like to know, would there be an opportunity, if I'm so selected, that I feel like it's important for a school board and a superintendent to have that opportunity to have like a retreat and have that discussion, to be able to set the norms. I think it's important that we all understand the roles that we play, but not only agree to the norms, but that we also can trust one another to be able to remind ourselves when perhaps we sway out of our different roles. I always look at the school board as being the navigators on the boat, and we're doing the rowing. You guys decide the what, how much, and to which students, and then we do the how. And so, but I feel like there's so much power in governance when we're all on the same page. And so I would want to make sure that we had those opportunities to meet together, especially coming out of the gate, and to possibly even do like a book study where we really become that high impact school board and governance team, and where we meet weekly. So I would definitely want to have an opportunity to hear your expectations as far as communication and how we handle things and how we communicate things and how we keep each other updated, but also to keep it sustainable throughout the time. You just don't want it to be a one and done. We want to make sure that we grow and flourish this relationship, because the strength of a school division is only as strong as we are in this room right now, or those joining us is working together as a team. And so I'd like to know if that would be feasible. And then, I guess it would be in the future in like July, if we have the opportunity to sit down. And also I would like the opportunity to speak with you each individually prior to that time. So I just don't come in July, that I already have that opportunity to just, virtually meet with some of you to understand, your platforms and your focus and what your concerns are. And so I have an idea going forward.
Thank you for that, Dr. Gonzalez. She's asking for a commitment to board retreat and professional development together. I think I can speak for the board in saying that's something that this board's very interested in.
Okay.
And the opportunity to meet with individual board members is always welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
We've got just a couple minutes if you've got other questions.
Yes, I was also wondering, has the board started looking at your return for next year and what state you are in that? And also, and see, now I'm going to do to you guys, I'm going to give you a layered question. And also where you are in the process of revamping, addressing your student achievement plan, your strategic plan that you have in place that's expiring. Where are we at on both of those plans?
We have lots of work to do.
Okay.
And we're committed to that work.
Okay.
So looking forward to that work as we move forward.
Very good. Very good. Well, exciting times when you start looking forward. And also, have you all been addressing of how you might address the learning loss? Have you looked at plans for the summer or extended year or starting the year earlier for next year? Have those discussions begun?
Those conversations have begun, certainly, and the superintendent can speak to that.
Okay.
We haven't had public conversations too much about that, just a little bit.
Sure.
The focus of our time has certainly been this superintendent search, but that work is going to be really important as we move forward. We're committed to that as well.
Very good. And so when I saw, the attributes that the community had submitted, what they're looking for in a superintendent, I would ask the board also, what are you looking for specifically in a superintendent in the sense of the role that a superintendent plays in a relationship with the school board in moving forward and trying to build that stronger? What are you looking for in a superintendent?
Well, that's all part of that work. The board was included in that survey work. And I think that would be really important conversations to have with the board.
I would agree.
If we move forward, that's important part of that retreat work as well. Thank you. And thanks for your thoughtful questions. And thank you for spending your time with us.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you so much.
I'm sure the board wants to extend their gratitude to you as well. So thank you so much for the time you spent with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, teacher.
Yes. No, thank you.
Are you ready to turn off the live feed?
Yes, so thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. And with that finishing of questions and our time, we'll go ahead and call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.